What's up, everyone, and welcome into another edition of Inside the GIAA Show. I'm Thrift Barringer, your voice of GIAA, alongside the other voice of the GIAA. His name is Big Rich, Richard Holdridge. How are you, man? Another great week inside the GIAA sports realm.
Another great week of GIAA sports. I can't believe that we've got a couple more weeks, and then it's championship week for soccer and baseball. All the other sports in spring sports have wrapped up for the season. So I'm looking forward to having another great Inside the GIAA show.
We're going to talk about lacrosse. That was the only other championship that happened this past week. We'll also give you an update on what's happened in the baseball brackets for each classification. Richard and our soccer contributor, Coach Iain Jones of Stratford, they break down the soccer bracket. And this tonight's show won't be as long. We won't have any guests. No few good minutes for this week's show. We will start that back up next week. We'll also have on some of the commissioners next week as we prepare for those state championship games that are happening the following week, May 27th and 28th. It's soccer. May 29th through the 31st. It's baseball. So this week's all about updating what's going on. Talk about baseball and soccer, the only playoffs left standing. And we are presented by the Beck Center and the Beck Center of Academic and Athletic Success. Thank you to Roger Beck and the Beck Center for presenting all GIAA state championships. And, of course, inside the GIAA and the GIAA football scoreboard show that we had a lot of fun doing back in the fall. We will be picking back up here in the near future.
Yes.
GIAAsports.org is the website. That's where you find all the information, updated brackets, standings, scores, the games. It is all here. It's one of the best ran websites out of all the leagues that we cover, Richard. We cover a lot of high school leagues. This is the best website I've ever seen. It's got the most information. It's easy to attain. This is it. Go to GIAAsports.org. GIAA.tv is what we're live on right now. And that's where you can watch all these state championship broadcasts, Richard. And then, of course, Instagram and Facebook, they give you all the update and news and information on that. And I know you love following their Instagram page as well. Thanks, Fana. Always does a great job.
Yeah, it truly does. I'm excited. Just everything that's going on in the spring sports for the GIAA. And then we're going to pick right back up at fall sports, and not just football, but you got volleyball, you've got softball, and and we might even have some new ideas that might come out for the GIAA show coming up this fall. So I cannot wait, and I'm excited to get the show going.
I am too. And without further ado, again, we are presented by the Beck Center of Academic and Athletic Success. We got soccer coming up, baseball coming up. Congratulations to all the track and field championships, tennis, golf. What else am I missing for this past one? Lacrosse. As well. We appreciate all those state championships that we just got through, from tennis individual to tennis team state to golf to track and field to lacrosse, and now baseball and soccer that are coming up here in just a little bit. We had a lot of fun covering them and having on contributors the entire season or in playoff round.
Yeah, it truly was a lot of fun. Last time we did Inside the GIAA show, we had a lacrosse championship that was scheduled May the 8th, and congratulations to the George Walton Bulldogs for defeating Strong Rock.
So kind of explain for our GIAA audience, there's not a lot of lacrosse teams to talk about how many teams are in it, how the playoff bracket went down, and how this championship was, Richard.
Yeah, there's only 6 teams in the entire GIAA when it comes to lacrosse. And, lacrosse is just one of those sports. It's a sport.
It's fun to watch.
It's fun to watch. I've seen lacrosse. It is fun to watch, but it's also a sport that's more popular in the North. And so, a 14-3 win. And this is boys lacrosse, by the way. And there was so many opportunities. Like you had there's a player who had 3 goals, William Ferguson for George Walton.
That?
3 goals, high scoring, but the defense of George Walton was able to keep Strong Rock, who was the host school, be able to keep them off the scoreboard, and a convincing championship win for George Walton Academy. So congratulations to the George Walton Academy Bulldogs for winning the lacrosse championship.
And by the way, the girls was Pinecrest. They also beat George Walton. In the playoffs. There were 4 teams that made it. George Walton beat Stratford, and Pinecrest beat Strong Rock. And then George Walton and Pinecrest played for the lacrosse championship. And Pinecrest are the girls champions. So Pinecrest girls and then George Walton boys.
And Lenny Jolly had 6 goals in
wow.
the game. Reggie Ross with 4. And that was a back-and-forth game. Pinecrest, the Paladins, get a narrow 11-10 victory over George Walton. Man, I tell you what, lacrosse, I hope that we get more teams in the GIAA that play lacrosse.
Yeah, what a game, though. 11-10 for them to going down to the wire. George Walton had dominated everyone. They smoked Strong Rock earlier in the year. They beat Stratford by 17. And for them to lose by 1, this was a battle of wills, and the wills of the Paladins are going to be your state championship for the girls.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to the Paladins and George Walton for your lacrosse championship. Another spring sport in the books, and now we could put all of our focus on soccer and baseball because we are in the playoffs as the first round for both soccer and baseball happened this past week. And I'm excited to get into the second round action in baseball.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go into the baseball playoffs. We're going to talk brackets. We're going to talk who's still alive, what matchups are coming up. You don't want to go anywhere. It's GIAA.TV inside the GIAA with Richard Holdridge. I'm for Barringer. Don't go anywhere. Be right back after this.
This copyrighted broadcast, presented exclusively on GIAA.TV, is copyrighted by the Georgia Independent Athletic Association, a division of the Georgia Independent School Association, for the private use of our audience. It may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the express written consent of the Georgia Independent School Association.
Founded in 1985, the Georgia Independent School Association proudly represents nearly 170 accredited private, independent, and parochial schools across the state. From Tallulah Falls to St. Simon's Island, from Columbus to Augusta, our schools serve over 76,000 students every year. Whether parents are interested in smaller class sizes, more individual attention, a religious-based curriculum, or a safe and structured environment, the GISA provides a strong education, which is the foundation for success. To learn more about the GISA and how they can serve your school, visit us online at www.gisaschools.org.
Welcome back, everyone, to Inside the GIAA. I'm Thrift Barringer alongside Richard Holdridge, and now let's talk about those baseball playoffs. Again, go to GIAAsports.org, click on the Sports tab. Once you click on the Sports tab, you'll click on Baseball. It'll take you to this right here site I'm on right now. You then click on brackets, and you can see all who is still alive. And Richard was kind enough to download these brackets for us to talk about. Let's start with the 1A classification, Richard. And if you look at the 1A classification, Thomas Jefferson, the 9 seed, took down a small upset, but on the road,
a little bit of an upset
against Atlanta Jewish. So now Citizen Christian, the number 1 team, will take on Thomas Jefferson at home this Friday night. Games 1 and 2, game 3 on Saturday. Westwood took down Heritage Prep. We expected that. That was a 5-12. So Westwood will go on the road to David Emanuel. Vidalia Heritage took down Covenant, and they will take on the number 2 team, who was number 1 for some portions of the season, Flint River. And finally, Robert Toombs, the defending champion. They defeated First Preparatory Christian, and the number 6 seed is now taking on Grace Christian on the road. Thoughts from what you've seen from this, and how do you see these quarterfinals playing out, Rich?
Well, we could possibly see a semifinal matchup between Robert Toombs and Flint River, which was a rematch of the championship last season. Citizens Christian's been the number 1 team coming into this bracket. I think that they're going to have a tough matchup if it is David Emanuel. But Westwood, I would not count out the 5 seed. We had only had one upset in this bracket, and it was a slight upset, like you mentioned. Thomas Jefferson beating the 8 seed Atlanta Jewish. These doubleheader games are going to be on Friday. All the games for the GIAA second round are going to be doubleheaders on Friday. Some teams are starting really early because they don't have lights, but they'll have the doubleheader and then an if necessary game on Saturday.
Yep. So moving forward now, Richard, as we continue on, which is Frederica, who is the number 1 seed, is going to be taken on now in the, that is 3A classification. 2A. Now we're going to 2A. Let me go back a second, because I kind of skipped ahead, so I apologize. I agree with you. I'm going all chalk. I got Grace Christian, Flint River. I don't see the upset with Robert Toombs, and I got David Emmanuel and Citizen Christian
Good pick.
in 1A. 2A, Gatewood, the number 1 team, is now taking on Brentwood. They took care of Westminster in that Westminster 8-9 matchup. Georgia Christian, the number 5 seed, beat Augusta Prep and swept them, and now Trinity Christian and Georgia Christian, the 4-5, will take on in the quarterfinals. Southwest Georgia Academy, who we saw last week, take on Brookstone in a game that's like a tune-up game for both teams, because both Brookstone and Southwest Georgia, both number 2 seeds in the respective classification, had a bye. So they didn't want to go a whole week not playing a game. But Rock Springs, out of the gaps, took down Southland. And Rock Springs is now taking on Southwest Georgia in the 2-7 matchup of the quarterfinals. And Heritage beat Holy Spirit. So now they take on Edmund Burke, and they will be on the road. Thoughts on this 2A classification?
I'm calling the upset. I got Heritage over Edmund Burke. I mean, when your manager is former Braves catcher Johnny Estrada, and Heritage is a team that was in 3A that goes down to 2A, played a lot of tough opponents this year. I know that they seem to be rebuilding, but I think this Heritage team is going to pull off the upset. Rock Springs, they went to the semifinals last year in the gaps. But I think Southwest Georgia, who only had 1 loss all season, might make that 2 losses because they did lose to Brookstone. I think that Southwest Georgia takes care of business, and I think it's going to be Southwest Georgia and the defending 2A champion Gatewood in the championship at Synovus Park. But Gatewood, I think they get by Brentwood. I like this Trinity Christian, Georgia Christian matchup. This 4-5 matchup, Trinity Christian out of Dublin, Georgia Christian out of Valdosta, and it's going to set up for a great semifinal matchup for some of these teams, and I'm excited to see how it goes. But as of now, the only upset I see is Heritage over Edmund Burke.
I completely agree with you on that, Richard. I can see the upset happen there. I can also see Rock Springs maybe upsetting Southwest Georgia. I wouldn't put it past them as well, but I do like that Gatewood making it all the way to the championship game. All these games are games 1 and 2 on Friday. Game 3, if necessary, will be on Saturday. Well, good luck to all the 2A teams still left alive in the baseball playoffs. Now let's go to 3A. Richard, I'll let you take this one.
All right. Well, in 3A, Frederica is the number 1 overall seed. They're going to be taking on Tift Area, who defeated the number 8 seed Westfield School. So that was kind of an upset. John Millage, who's always a powerhouse in 3A, they are going to be taking on Brookwood. So far, this is the biggest upset of the tournament. Brookwood, the 12 seed, takes down Deerfield Windsor, the 5 seed. So you got the 4 and the 12 matchup between John Millage and Brookwood. Frederica taking on Tift Area, the 9 seed. Pinewood is going to be taking on Valwood, who defeated Lakeview, the 10 seed. So you got the 7 and the 2. We expected that there. Dominion Christian is going to be taking on Piedmont, who took down the defending 3A champions, Terrell Academy. Now, this is a team that has been rebuilding, and they lose in the first round. So Dominion Christian and Piedmont, Pinewood and Valwood. I think it's going to be Dominion Christian and Pinewood in the semifinals. And then in the semifinals on the top of the bracket, it's going to be Frederica and John Millage. I'm picking Pinewood and Frederica, so I'm going all chalk here to play in the 3A championship at Synovus Park.
All right. So, for one, Brookwood taking down Deerfield Windsor is about the biggest upset as I've seen in this playoffs. Deerfield Windsor, an excellent team who honestly handled Lakeside, who is a AISA team in Alabama that had one of the more dominant years, won 53 games this year, went 53-6. One of their losses was to Deerfield. Deerfield beat them and yet got upset by the number 12 seed. Never in a million years would I thought that, but that is how baseball plays out, man.
Yeah.
This is how it crumbles. It's about who's playing hot. It's not always about who the best team is. I don't see an upset with John Millage or Frederica. I think Pinewood and Piedmont are going to be playing in the semifinals, and I'm with you. I like Pinewood and Frederica in the championship game coming up at Synovus Park, May the 29th through the 31st. 4A, Stratford took down Tallulah Falls. That's an 8-9. Stratford the 9. So, again, a little minor upset. They'll take on FPD, so they'll travel about 10 minutes down the road, hop, skip, and a jump to FPD to take on their rival in the Vikings.
Yeah, home field advantage does not matter, and plus they're both in the same region. So you can throw out the record book. Stratford knows this FPD team very well.
Athens Christian dominated George Walton. Now they take on Bethlehem Christian, a team that makes it to many semifinals, got a really good program. and they will take on this Friday and Saturday. Bullock took down St. Epicelli, swept them. So Bullock is now taking on Brookstone, the number 2 seed, taking on the 7. Good sweep by Bullock. And then an upset. The number 11 Strong Rock, who I think could have been undervalued and underseeded. It's a really good team. We got to see them firsthand. Richard and calls that series. And they took down Calvary in the best of 3 in game 3 at Calvary. And Calvary, a team that's won 6 straight state championships, they lose for the first time outside of the state championship in over 8 years, man, because they made it the previous 2 years before they went on this incredible streak of 6 straight in the gaps. And in year 1 of the GIAA, they lose to Strong Rock. So Strong Rock's going to be taking on, I think, one of the best teams in the entire state, Tatnall. And this right here, if you look at this quarterfinals, I just don't see it as good as Stratford, Athens Christian, Bullock, and Strong Rock are. I'm going all chalk because I think the 4 top teams are the best teams in the state. I got FPD, Bethlehem, Brookstone, Tatnall. That Brookstone Tatnall is going to be a barn burner. Can't wait for it. But I'm going to go back to last year's state championship, FPD and Brookstone. Give me your thoughts on the results from last week, and then what do you think is going to happen the rest of the way?
Well, that Calvary Strong Rock game, not that much of an upset. Strong Rock was underseeded. They went to the semifinals last year. They won the GIAA championship 2 years ago. They're a very well-coached team. Their head coach was coaching college baseball at Tennessee and East Carolina. Calvary just taking on a team that they're very familiar with, and Strong Rock ended up taking that series. I do like Tatnall in this matchup because I think Tatnall is also undervalued as a 3 seed. They could easily be a number 1 seed. Tatnall has playing an outstanding year, also in the same region with FPD. Brookstone, I see them getting by Bullock Academy. Brookstone, the defending GIAA champions. Their pitching is very solid with Chinu Kim and Luke Lowry. They have a closer by the name of Brendan Neal, who's got closer stuff. One of the top players in the GIAA, Mercer Hudson, the top of that lineup. I think it's going to be Brookstone and Tatnall in the semifinals. I actually am calling the upset here. Not much of an upset. I think Athens Christian beats Bethlehem Christian.
Wow.
And FPD beats Stratford. So it's going to be Athens Christian and FPD. You got to remember, Athens Christian, they have not skipped a beat since they have gone to the GIAA. This is a team in the GHSA that had so much success. And I think that Athens Christian was kind of underseeded. Bethlehem Christian always flies under the radar. We've seen this with other sports where their record really does not reflect the type of team they are. And it's all about who have you played. And I do think that Athens Christian gets the win there. And so I'm on track to see possibly another rematch of the state championship last year. I think it's going to be FPD and Brookstone once again at Synovus Park.
And again, the quarterfinals are this week, Friday and Saturday. Games 1 and 2 Friday, game 3 Saturday for all classifications. Semifinals will be next week at the higher seeds, and the championship game May 29th to the 31st at Synovus Park. And I can't wait to see how the rest of these playoffs play out. It's going to be a lot of fun seeing who are going to be those teams that are in the state championship, who's trying to go back to back, who's trying to get on the top of the mountain. We're going to find out here in the next couple of weeks for sure. We got soccer coming up next. Our contributor, Iain Jones, talk about who are the soccer teams alive as they got their quarterfinals this week. And then semifinals the next week. Remember, they're on the same path as baseball, and they'll be their state championship that week of the 27th through the 31st. So when we come back from break, Richard talk with Iain Jones, and then we'll come back and wrap it up here. It's Inside the GIAA on GIAA.tv.
GIAA.tv now brings you more live coverage of more sports than ever before. Announcing GIAA.tv Lite with live coverage of swim, wrestling, cheer, and more. GIAA.tv Lite is the next best thing to being there. From one screen, you will hear the crowd, see the action, the scores, the stats, and more. With no play-by-play or instant replays, GIAA.tv Lite is half the price of our regular broadcast. Announcing GIAA.tv Plus. With all of your fan favorites, GIAA.tv Plus now adds volleyball, softball, all-star football, and more. Featuring all the play-by-play, instant replays, multiple angles, and more, all for less than the cost of 2 adult tickets to the event. Don't miss 1 second of the action all year long, only on GIAA.tv.
Welcome back to Inside the GIAA, as I'm excited because Soccer playoffs just underway for both the girls and the boys. And like we always do every week, we have got our soccer correspondent. He is the head boys coach of Stratford Academy. Please welcome to Inside the GL today, Coach Iain Jones. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great, Richard. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. Let's go ahead and dive into this brackets. I'm a bracketologist myself. We're going to start with the 2A girls. Everybody's playing this Friday, and you have the 4 teams that are just waiting in the wind. They had a first-round bye. That first matchup, the defending champion Central Fellowship taking on Heritage. You also got Trinity Christian that's taking on the 5 seed Sherwood Christian. So we pretty much got chalk. We got the 1-8 matchup, the 4 and 5 matchup. Over in the 2-7 matchup, we got Westminster Christian and Gatewood. And then Georgia Christian, the number 3 seed, is taking on St. George. So really no upsets in that first round. Now, what was your takeaway from the first round, and what are you looking forward to in the second round of the 2A girls?
Well, I can say that, looking at the brackets, I think, the results kind of speak for themselves in regards to how the seedings have fed out. No real upsets there. I think, this next round, there's a good possibility of some upsets for some teams that might make some noise. Sherwood Christian, like I've said in the weeks past, I think, at a 5 seed, they could certainly give Trinity Christian a run for their money. And then likewise, St. George's has got Georgia Christian. And again, I think those 5 and 6 seeds, those are hard seeds to really finalize. If you look at all the classifications, I think the 5 and 6 seeds, if they have a solid game and a show up to play, I think they can certainly potentially cause an upset in those rounds. I think Central Fellowship on the girls' side is still clearly the favorite. But again, I'm sure that they're going to be well prepared to play Heritage, and I'm sure Heritage is certainly going to show up to play as well.
All right, let's talk about the 2A boys as the number 1 overall seed and the runners-up in 3A last year, Holy Spirit Prep, taking on the 8 seed Trinity Christian, St. George, the 4 seed, taking on the 5 seed Sherwood Christian, the 2 seed Heritage is taking on the 7 seed Westminster Christian. And you've got Central Fellowship, the 3 seed, taking on Augusta Prep. What's your takeaway for the 2A boys? And do you see any upsets here?
Well, I think Holy Spirit, if they show up to play, and I know that they're in a position right now where they might be missing some players due to some school functions. But I think Holy Spirit is still clearly the favorite on that side of the bracket. And then St. George's and Sherwood Christian, I think that one's going to be a fight to the nail between those 2 teams. And again, I still think that Sherwood Christian could cause an upset there. I think Heritage playing against Westminster Christian, who are the state runners-up from last year, I think Heritage probably had the edge on that just from experience because they used to be a 3A team and still play a very competitive schedule. And I think Central Fellowship being at home, they are, I think, favorites to beat Augusta Prep.
Yeah, no question about it. Central Fellowship out of Macon. I think that home crowd is really going to help them, especially playing at Stratford Academy in Macon. All right, let's move on to the 3A girls. The 3A girls and the 3A boys did not play any matches because they only have 8 teams. And so technically the first round starts this Friday. And let's start with the 3A girls. As Frederica, they are taking on Brookwood. And Frederica, very talented team, and I like this matchup. And when you think of a powerhouse in 3A soccer, you think of Frederica Academy. They are the defending champions for a reason. And then you got Terrell taking on Lakeview, Deerfield Windsor, the 3C taking on John Millage, St. Andrews taking on Westminster of Augusta. Do you like Frederica coming out and trying to go back-to-back, or is there anybody like a sleeper team that could give Frederica problems?
From my experience with Frederica is on the girls' side. Obviously I coached against them a long time ago, and Frederica on the girls' side have always traditionally been a powerhouse, mainly because they've got some really good club soccer players. that are heavily involved with the club, and they travel down to Florida, and some travel to Atlanta. So I don't see anyone right now that I think could upset Frederica. Now, again, I've talked about mental preparation. If mental preparation by these players is not handled right, well, the coaches aren't able to keep the kids focused at this time of year. I think that's the one thing I think that could hold Frederica up. But I think the Deerfield John Mills matchup is going to be an interesting one. I think if John Mills are healthy and they've got all their players, I think that could be a very challenging game for Deerfield. John Mills has got a lot of experience playing against really good competition, coming out of District 6, where they've been playing against Stratford, FPD, Tatnall, etc. So, I think Terrell's got the advantage being at home against Lakeview, and then at St. Andrews, I think, they're probably one of the favorites to get to the finals. But again, I think the winner of that Deerfield John Mills game is going to give St. Andrews a run for their money as well.
All right, let's talk about 3A boys, because you have the defending champions, Westminster Schools of Augusta, who did play Holy Spirit Prep in the championship last year, and Heritage is down in 2A. St. Mary's is not there. So the final 4 teams in 3A, it's Westminster Schools of Augusta, and everybody else is either not in the playoffs or they move to another classification. Do you think that playoff experience is going to help Westminster Schools of Augusta just cruise their way to the championship on Wednesday, May the 28th, or is there a team that has not had any experience in the playoffs making a deep run, because none of the final 4 teams, with the exception of Westminster Schools of Augusta, are remaining in the 3A classification? Do you like Westminster Schools of Augusta to repeat, or is there a team out there that might give them trouble?
I think, out of all the classifications, for argument's sake, I think Westminster could be easily one of the top teams in all classifications. I mean, they fell to Tallulah Falls a week last Friday in a very tight contest. It was Westminster up 2-0 and unfortunately lost 3-2. So for argument's sake, I mean, they would challenge for the 4A state title as well, for sure. I honestly think St. Andrews and Brookwood are the only ones that might be able to challenge Westminster. But I think if Westminster are playing well, I think it's going to be very difficult. But, I know Coach Brower pretty well. I've got to know him over the last few years. And the one thing he's a class act. He's going to ensure that his team is prepared and not, think that, they're just going to walk through. He's a very disciplined coach and ensures good sportsmanship, and wants to make sure that his players aren't going to disrespect the game. He's going to make sure that they're very well prepared for each opponent, regardless of who they face. But again, I still think there's just no one in that classification, I think, that could really challenge Westminster as long as Westminster's playing their best.
All right, Coach. 4A girls, the Pacelli Lady Vikings are the overall number 1 seed. They were the runners-up to Brookstone last year, which Brookstone, a 6 seed, was able to get by Tatnall Square. They're going to be on the road taking on the Kings Academy. Stratford Academy, they went to the Final Four last year. They are a strong 2 seed, taking on Strong Rock. And then George Walton, they are taking on First Presbyterian Day, which that is going to be a game. FPD went to the Final Four last year. Is Pacelli the odds-on overall favorite when it comes to winning a championship here? I mean, I know they finished in 2nd place last year, but knowing just the history of Pacelli soccer and what Coach Cochran has built at Pacelli, do you think that there is a team that could give them problems? Because I think we're hoping for a Stratford-Pacelli final, which would be amazing for Stratford Academy, because that would be a home field advantage. But you got the 1 and 2 seed. Are they on a collision course to meet in the championship?
I think Pacelli might be on a clear course to go into the finals. I think the only team on that side of the bracket I think that could cause Pacelli some trouble is FPD. I mean, FPD's got some very, very solid players. Bowen Matthews I'm sure that the leading goal scorer for the league. If she's on her game and if they don't contain her, I think Pacelli will can face some really good competition on that side of the bracket. I think Brookstone. I mean, Brookstone are the defending state champs. I think their record is not reflective of how good they are. So I think Stratford and Brookstone, assuming teams that are mentally prepared, teams that don't look too far ahead of themselves, I think Stratford and Brookstone are heading for a semifinal matchup. And then it's a tough call to make. I think obviously Pacelli are the clear favorites. But I think on any given day at this stage of the season, the team that's most well prepared, the team that comes together as one and competes is what will be the team that is going to come out. Because last year we saw Pacelli were the favorites to win, and Brookstone, they upset them in the state final. And watching that game, you could see the difference in mental preparation by Brookstone, and that they were more well prepared for that state final.
All right, Coach, finally, the 4A boys, the bracket that you're most familiar with as you are the boys coach of Stratford Academy, as your team is the number 2 seed and the defending GIAA champions. Got a matchup against the 10 seed. The Bullock Academy ended up getting the upset win over the Keens Academy. So you're facing Bullock Academy. Calvary Christian, first year in the GIAA, was able to defeat Mount DeSales. They are going on the road to take on Fulton Science, the 3rd seed. Pacelli's a 4 seed taking on Cristo Rey. They are hosting. Pacelli was the runners-up last year. And newcomers to the GIAA, Tallulah Falls is the overall number 1 seed taking on Riverside Military Academy. So, Coach, when you look at this bracket in 4A, what sticks out? Is Stratford the favorite, or how good is Tallulah Falls? I mean, it's kind of an unknown because it's their first year in the GIAA. And talk about these matchups and what we could possibly see in the semifinals and in the finals.
Well, right off the bat, I mean, Tallulah Falls has earned that number 1 seed. They have, minus the 1 loss they had to us, I mean, they have been very consistent throughout the season in regards to their results. So I think that, especially after their result against Westminster a few weeks ago, that they are the team to beat. I think they're the team. They are right now the clear-cut favorites. So certainly, I think we've got some teams in our bracket, in the brackets that can, maybe cause them some trouble. But right now, based on their results, they are the clear favorites in my opinion. But obviously, I think Pacelli and Cristo Rey, that's going to be a really good matchup. I think discipline in that game is going to be the key factor. The team that is the most disciplined defensively will come out on top on that. And then I think if Pacelli comes out, I think they could cause Tallulah Falls. They could really give Tallulah Falls a run for their money. And then on our side of the bracket, I mean, we've got Bullock. Obviously we beat Bullock early in the season in our first game of the year. They're going to be much improved from that game. But I think home field is going to be a key factor for us. We're actually going to be playing that game on Friday night because of our graduation on Saturday. So I know the boys are excited. And again, the one thing I keep stressing, and I say this, I can't stress enough, mental preparation is going to be key. If teams aren't mentally prepared and look ahead to the next round, that they're going to find themselves in trouble. I think that Fulton Science Calvary Christian game, I think that's another going to be a really good game. I think Calvary Christian's seeding is not probably as accurate. I think for argument's sake, there could be a 4 or 5 seed. They lost some games early in the year, but some of those games where they were missing some key players, whether it's outside commitments or due to some suspensions. But again, I think this is going to be an exciting bracket to watch, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too, Coach. May the 27th and the 28th. The girls' classification will start on that Tuesday at Stratford Academy, starting with the 2A Girls Championship at 2:30. 3A Girls Championship follows at 5, and then the nightcap, the 4A Girls Championship at 7:30. Same with the boys on Wednesday, 2:30 for the 2A classification, 5 p.m. for the 3A classification, and 7:30 for the 4A classification. Thank you so much for joining Inside the GIAA, Coach. And good luck to your team, and hopefully we might see you in the championship in a couple of weeks.
I hope so, but like I said, I just hope we get some good quality soccer from our kids as we enter the final stage of the season. So we can kind of spread the good word about the love of the game of soccer. So and again, I can't thank you enough for for giving us some publicity on this, because I think the kids deserve it. They put in a lot of time and effort, and I know the coaches around the league appreciate it as well. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. That is our soccer correspondent and Stratford Academy boys soccer coach, Coach Iain Jones. Thank you so much once again for joining us on Inside the GIAA. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we got more Inside the GIAA for you here on Inside the GIAA and GIAA.tv.
This copyrighted broadcast, presented exclusively on GIAA.tv, is copyrighted by the Georgia Independent Athletic Association, a division of the Georgia Independent School Association, for the private use of our audience. It may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the express written consent of the Georgia Independent School Association. GIAA.tv now brings you more live coverage of more sports than ever before. Announcing GIAA.tv Lite with live coverage of swim, wrestling, cheer, and more. GIAA.tv Lite is the next best thing to being there. From one screen, you will hear the crowd, see the action, the scores, the stats, and more. With no play-by-play or instant replays, GIAA.tv Lite is half the price of our regular broadcast. Announcing GIAA.tv Plus. With all of your fan favorites, GIAA.tv Plus now adds volleyball, softball, all-star football, and more, featuring all the play-by-play, instant replays, multiple angles, and more, all for less than the cost of 2 adult tickets to the event. Don't miss 1 second of the action all year long, only on GIAA.tv.
Welcome back, everyone, inside the GIAA. Richard Holdridge, great job with that segment with Iain Jones. And I love the way y'all talk about high school soccer and look forward to seeing who's going to be in those championship games.
Yeah, Stratford Academy, May the 27th and 28th, the girls' championships, 3 soccer matches starting at 2:30 and followed with the 4A girls at 7:30. So you got the 2A girls at 2:30, 3A girls at 5, and then the 4A girls at 7:30. And then the boys, same thing, same format, 2A, 3A, and 4A, all 3 soccer matches starting at 2:30 at Stratford Academy.
Richard, we had a segment that we're going to add in here, and it's called Where Are They At Now? And we're going to talk about some of those key players. And we did this earlier in the year, but we kind of rehashed it a little bit. And Richard, you have some of that list of players that have played in the GIAA that have gone on to play at the next level. And most recently has been Anthony Edwards, who played at Holy Spirit Prep back when it's the GISA and now the GIAA. And Anthony Edwards went away from playing back in the conference finals of the NBA. And I think he's going to make it to the NBA finals and solidify him as a top 3 player in the entire league.
Well, I wanted to bring back this segment because we got some newcomers to the GIAA, so I wanted to add them.
Go ahead.
We're going to start with.
The list also included Russell Henley and a few others as well.
Yeah, well, Russell Henley, he played at Stratford Academy, obviously one of the top golfers in the world. He's getting ready for the PGA Championship that's coming up. So I'm excited about that. In fact, the first round is going to be on Thursday. I'm going to keep track of Russell Henley, and we know his accolades and winning a golf tournament this year, and he won the Arnold Palmer Invitational this year, and he missed the cut in the Masters, but he had a pretty good second round and was able to. He was on the brink of making the cut.
Close.
He was very close. He finished 4th at the Masters in 2023, but I'm looking forward to seeing him in the PGA Championship. Obviously, Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're about to close out the Golden State Warriors, and could we see Anthony Edwards in the NBA Finals? This looks like a player that could be the face of the NBA if he isn't already, especially with LeBron being 40. I want to see Anthony Edwards as the new face of the NBA, but I'm looking forward to seeing what Anthony Edwards can do in the Western Conference Finals for the 2nd year in a row, because I do think they close out the Golden State Warriors to possibly face the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I'm excited about that. We know that John Rocker, he pitched at First Presbyterian Day obviously a dominant closer for the Braves in the 90s and the early 2000s.
But who are those new names that you said you had mentioned?
Well,
I'm excited to hear this along with everybody else.
Well, we got a pitcher named Alan Busenitz who played at Athens Christian.
Okay.
He actually was in the Cincinnati Reds organization. He got brought up to the majors for a season. And also Seaver King is a player that of recently that played for Athens Christian that got into the majors. As we continue getting more of these shows, there's going to be some players that are going to be under our radar that we're going to see them throughout their career. Like Harrison Buckner, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. He played at Westminster Schools of Augusta. Obviously, walk-on Parker Jones, who became a social media sensation for the wrong reasons. He is still at the University of Georgia, played at Deerfield Windsor. I mean, this was actually a very good player at Deerfield Windsor. And I hope that he can get through that and he can get past that and make an impact, whether it's Georgia, whether he enters the transfer portal. I hope that, that does not defy who he is, because he was a great player at Deerfield Windsor.
Well, that is where they at right now, and we'll try to have a better segment for that next week and get more information for that. So thank you so much, Richard, for looking up that information. We're here cheering them on, and we are live right now on GIAA.tv. That's where you can watch the soccer and baseball state championships coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Soccer at Stratford, May 27th and 28th. That's a Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday through Friday of that week, May 29th through 31st, baseball at Synovus Park. Go to GIAA.sports.org. GIAAsports.org is the website for information. Also follow us on Instagram. We're live right now on YouTube and the Facebook page. You need to be following us on all our social medias and Twitter as well, or X, to be able to keep up with all the news and notes inside the GIAA. Any final thoughts, Rich, before we get out of here?
I do want to say we are approximately 3 months away from the start of fall sports.
Wow.
And that first sport that kicks off in the GIAA is volleyball. And you've got Pacelli, the defending 4A champions. You've got Heritage, the defending 3A champions. Heritage is now in 2A. I'm interested to see what the volleyball season looks like. Of course, a lot of the athletes for football are multi-sport athletes. So they do have spring practices that happen for some schools. I know we're getting ready to preview the football season and also softball, because we've got the girls softball championships, and I'm looking, and they don't have the schedule out for softball, but the volleyball schedule is out. And we have the first game that's actually on the schedule. Grace Christian taking on Colquitt County on August the 5th.
We're already talking about 2025 and 2026.
Yeah.
That's how excited we are for next year. And I want to say, too, there's spring practice going on for football right now. There's tryouts for softball as well that's going to be in the fall that have already gone down as they're getting ready for their first practices. So for all those spring football practices, we can't wait to see what's in store. We'll have content this summer that we plan on continuing to do with the GIAA. We will take a little bit of a break, but we will have stuff throughout the summer to kind of update you what's going on, and we'll come right back stronger than ever in August. But we still got a few more weeks here left in the spring sports. From Richard Holdridge, I'm Thrift Barringer. Thank you so much for watching Inside the GIAA. We'll see you next time. Good night, everyone. We are presented by the Beck Center of Academic and Athletic Success. Thank you to Roger Beck.
Thank you. Good night.
This copyrighted broadcast, presented exclusively on GIAA.tv, is copyrighted by the Georgia Independent Athletic Association, a division of the Georgia Independent School Association, for the private use of our audience. It may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the express written consent of the Georgia Independent School Association.